The off-duty pilot accused of trying to shut down a plane's engines mid-flight is appearing in federal court today. Joseph Emerson faces 83 counts of attempted murder, one for each passenger on Sunday's Alaska Airlines flight. The 44-year-old is also charged with interfering with a flight crew. He has pleaded not guilty to all counts. CBS News senior transportation correspondent Kris Van Cleave joins us now. Kris, court documents show that Emerson said he had taken mushrooms a couple of days before the flight. Lawyers say he was not under the influence of those mushrooms at the time he was on the plane. What can you tell us about what we actually know?
Well, certainly there will probably be some toxicology tests and things like that will come out as this case progresses that may clear up whether or not there was something in his system. What we know from the charging documents is that Emerson allegedly told police that he had tried psychedelic so-called magic mushrooms about 48 hours before this flight, that he had been battling depression, that he'd been up for 40 hours, and that when he pulled these handles in the cockpit to try to disable the engines, allegedly, he said that he felt like he was in a dream and was trying to wake up. Now, his lawyer, in a statement, says that Emerson is a caring father, a loving husband, and a skilled aviator. He would never intentionally hurt another person and was not under the influence of intoxicants. So, and Alaska says that when he boarded the flight, there was no evidence that he was under the influence of something or impaired. So I think it is a question as to what happened in that cockpit. Emerson also allegedly told police, based on the charging documents, that he felt like he was having a nervous breakdown. So, clearly something was off here. Whether or not he was under the influence or not, we don't know. Certainly for his defense, his lawyers will argue that he was not, because if he was high, it is likely that that's going to weigh heavily into what kind of criminal charges, what kind of plea deal, what kind of sentences he could face if in fact convicted.
Kris, Emerson is a pilot himself. We know that there have been cases where pilots have been afraid to seek mental health care. As you said, he said that he was in a crisis at that moment. And part of the reason is because they are worried about losing their ability to have those licenses to fly. Talk to us about the screening process and what safeguards are in place for pilots who are going through a mental health crisis.
It's a really interesting question. I've talked to a lot of pilots over the years who are frustrated with the way mental health in particular is treated, and that they say that the system has created almost a stigma around seeking therapy for any reason, seeing a psychiatrist or psychologist for any reason, because they fear that if that is reported as required, that in their medical certification process, these medical evaluations they go through, as frequently as every 6 to 12 months, that they could be deemed not flight worthy for taking care of their mental health when they aren't really a danger. The flip side of that is after the Germanwings crash a few years ago, that there were some real concerns about somebody who is battling depression, and that is certainly an extreme case, to be very clear. But there is concern amongst pilots about being completely transparent if they seek help, and that can lead to some people not to seek help. And we know that can be a real struggle. I've talked to pilots who, for a while, lost their flight qualifications because they sought care for depression. And that maybe isn't the way the system should work. And that's certainly something we've heard a lot from pilots in the last few days.
Right.
But there is a medical certification process, and Emerson passed it every time, Alaska said, throughout his more than 2 decades as an airline pilot, these regular FAA medical certification examinations.
All right. Certainly destigmatizing people who need care is in everybody's best interest. All right. Kris Van Cleave, thank you.
Sure thing.